Hi, guys and girls. I'm here today with the Chapter 5 Supply, Section 1, Understanding Supply Notes. So, we're going to cover three main objectives: understand how the law of supply explains the effect of changes in price on quantity supplied. We're going to interpret a supply graph using a supply schedule, very similar to what we did with demand, and then explain the relationship between elasticity of supply and time. So, supply's relationship with elasticity is different than it was for demand. So let's start off with the law of supply. So, uh, first, supply is the amount of goods available. The law of supply is the higher the price, the larger quantity produced. So, it's opposite of demand, whereas the price went up, demand would go down. In supply, the price goes up, suppliers produce more because they're seeking higher profits. Quantity supplied to describe how much a good is offered for sale at a specific price. So the law of supply develops from choices of both current and new producers of a good. As the price of good rises, existing firms will produce more in order to earn additional revenue. New firms will have an incentive to enter the marketplace to earn a profit. So whereas demand we're looking at from our point of view, consumer point of view, supply we're looking at it from the firm's business's point of view. So again, everything that's motivating them is driven by profit. If the price of a good falls, some firms will produce less and others might drop out of the marketplace. These two movements, individual firms changing their level of production and firms entering or exiting the market, combine to create the law of supply. Like demand, we have a ceteris paribus assumption with supply as well. If a firm is already earning a profit by selling a good, then an increase in the price will increase the firm's profits. This promise for higher revenues for each sale also encourages the firm to produce more. So in our example, if the price of pizza rises but the firm's cost of making pizza stays the same, then the pizzeria would earn a higher profit on each sale of slice. So a sensible entrepreneur would try to produce and sell more pizza to take advantage of the higher prices. Likewise, if the price of pizza goes down, the pizzeria will earn less profit per slice or even lose money. The owner will choose to sell less pizza and produce something else, such as calzones, that will yield more profit. Search for profit drives suppliers' decisions. Profits appeal both to producers already in the market and people who may decide to join the market. Rising prices draw new firms into a market and add to the quantity supplied of the good. Decrease in prices can force or encourage firms to leave a market and decrease the quantity supplied for the good. All right, part 2, supply schedule. Like demand, supply schedule shows the relationship between the price and quantity supplied for a specific good. The table compares two variables that can change. We can collect this information by asking the pizzeria owner how many slices he or she is willing and able to make at different prices, or we could look at records to see how the quantity supplied has varied as prices has changed. Supply schedules list supply for a very specific set of conditions. The schedule shows how the price of pizza affects the pizzeria's output. So like demand, the ceteris paribus assumption in supply is only in regards to changes in price. All other factors, such as the cost of the inputs, tomato sauce, labor, costs like rent, are assumed to remain constant or not impacting the supply. Obviously, those things will impact supply, but for now, we're looking just at how price impacts. So when price impacts supply, like it did with demand, we call that a change in quantity supplied. A rise or fall in the price of pizza will cause the quantity supplied to change, but not the supply or schedule. When a factor other than the price of pizza affects output, we have to build a whole new supply schedule for these new market conditions. So again, this is ceteris paribus assumption. Just like demand, we have what's called the market supply schedule, which is a chart that lists how much of a good suppliers will of all suppliers will offer at different prices. The market could again be something as small as the Lehigh Valley. If the price of pizza goes up $1, how much pizza are all the pizzerias going to offer? It could be statewide, the whole Pennsylvania. It could be all Northeast. It could be countrywide, global, etc. So market schedules can vary in size. Market supply schedule shows the relationship between prices and the total quantity supplied by all firms in that particular market. The information in a market supply schedule becomes important when we want to determine the total supply of a good at a certain price in a large area. Part 3, supply graph. So a supply curve, a graph of the quantity supplied of a good at different prices. Same with the market supplies curve, that again, graphic representation of quantity supplied of a good by all suppliers at different prices. Unlike the demand curve, supply curves always rise from the left to the right, whereas demand curves always go down from top left to the right. Here's an example of what a supply curve would look like. So if we had a demand curve on there, which we'll do next unit, they would basically form a X, or they would intersect at some point. Part 4, supply and elasticity. So elasticity is supply, different than it is for demand. A measure of the way quantity supplied reacts to a change in price, so that's the same as demand, but elasticity of supply tells how firms will respond to changes in the price of a good, not consumers. That's what we do with demand. So the labels elastic, inelastic, and unitary elastic represent the same values of elasticity as those of demand. So greater than 1, it's elastic supply. Less than 1, inelastic supply. 1 exactly, it's unitary elastic supply. And part 5. So how did we determine the elasticity supply? Well, we're not going to do any calculations with this, but time is going to be the key factor in determining whether a supply is inelastic or elastic. In the short run, a firm cannot easily change its output level, so supply is inelastic. In the long run, firms are more flexible, supply is more elastic. So it's actually, elasticity of supply is simpler than demand because we're using time as the factor. So we don't even need to do calculations to determine whether a supplier's product will be elastic or inelastic. Think about it. A big company, we actually could use the current crisis. Big company like Ford cannot, in the short term, go from making automobiles to ventilators. Something that's going to happen, but it's going to take time. They're slowly transitioning. They might be up and running by May. And even then, that first month or two, they're really going to be producing small amounts. So they're in the short term, their supply is going to be inelastic. They're just not capable of transitioning that quickly. But in the long run, so maybe by July, August, Ford would be able to pump out ventilators, so their supply will be much more elastic. All right, so that's a wrap with the Section 1 notes. You guys have a great Easter.